Good afternoon, and welcome everybody to the news that's not for everybody. We are not alone. They walking among us, maybe? Are they? That's the question. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you all so very much. Visual Disturbance, back again. Back again, folks. Well, I'll be trying my best to push this one out again today. I've been having some jaw pain, some teeth pain, and I talked about this prior to the other video we did, the last live feed. I usually don't beg for money or ask for anybody to be feel like they're needed to give me anything, but I'm having some teeth issues really bad, and I found out a couple of weeks ago that it's going to be $13,000 to do the procedures that I need to get done. I've got an infection in my teeth. It's a pain. Yes. So if you feel led to donate to the channel, you can reach this part of that on the PayPal, the link in the description. If you get an opportunity to check that out, I would really appreciate it. And I hate to ask my fellow followers and everybody out there in our world, but I have nowhere else to go with this. So it's kind of like I'm stuck in a hard place and there's a need here. And I pray that this doesn't divert you away from the channel. That's not my intent whatsoever. So with that being said, get all that boring stuff out of the way. Well, not too boring, but it's actually pretty serious. And then also the coffee is in the chat. So the coffee page is in the chat. The link is there in the chat box. So a little slow today, a little slow and not as coherent because I'm going through some infirmities, folks. So welcome to News Not For Everybody. A little rocky start from the beginning, but that's okay. Welcome everybody to, that's not the right screen. Hello. Welcome everybody back to the channel. Thank you all so very much. And sorry for a few little tech issues. It's just not working out here on the channel all of a sudden. So there you go. 1 second. That's what happens. I'm just trying to figure this out. There we go. Sorry for the rough introduction. So, thank y'all so very much for donating and people that have donated for that cause. God bless you guys. And let's get into this. Live here on the channel. I'm going to push this one out today. We're going to be talking about these little critters on the screen here. Hope y'all enjoy the program as much as I'm going to, because we're going to go down the deep rabbit holes of this insanity world that we live in, where things are coming off the rails when it comes to our reality. It really is. So, have you heard the news? And Scott, bless you. Thank you. And have y'all heard the news? It's even made mainstream media. Mainstream media is even talking about this nonsense. But I wouldn't call it nonsense. I call it the days of antiquity upon us. And here we are. Let's talk about Jesse Walters, prime time at Fox News. Let's go ahead and see this beautiful bean footage here, and let's talk about this, and I'll be right back.
We are not alone. The Pentagon released the UFO files a few weeks back, and we just found out over 1 billion people have visited the site. 1 billion. It's got to be a record. The War Department says more files will be released soon. UFO experts and top researchers have been investigating aliens for years. Their sources say dozens of crashed UFOs have been recovered, and what they found inside, shocking.
And do people think that there's one type of non-human intelligence that's visiting the Earth, or is there many, many types?
People who have been involved in recoveries have said
there are at least 4 separate types. Now, I have not had direct access to that, but I believe the people who I talk to.
4 different types of life.
4 different types of life.
4 different species of aliens. Another scientist called them Greys, Nordics, Insectoids, and Reptilians. All of them have 2 arms and 2 legs, just like us. Experts speculate the Reptilians are scaly with long tails, like a lizard. Insectoids look like a praying mantis. The Greys look like your classic movie alien, and the Nordics look like a regular Swedish guy, but 7 feet tall. We haven't seen the evidence, but Pete Hegseth says more evidence is coming, and there are a lot of believers in Congress.
I have seen evidence in a skiff that leads me to believe there are things we cannot explain, and I have observed things that are of non-human origin and creation. That's my opinion.
Releasing the files isn't easy. They've been hidden for years, and a lot of people want to keep it that way.
The problem we have right now is the deep state's fighting the president on release, and he kept his word, and I suspect some of our not so friendly comrades and some of our alphabet agencies are slow walking a lot of the information. It's about power, it's about control, and that's kind of what runs Washington.
So why is our own government fighting so hard to keep these secret? Well, a dozen scientists have either gone missing or died. Now, we don't know if that's related, but people are scared to talk.
One I thought was going to do an interview, and then a couple days before sent me a message saying, after further consideration and long talks with my wife, I decided I'd be forfeiting my life if I participated in your interview. And I thought that was like very unsettling message to get, obviously, but also very specific word choice, forfeiting my life.
Well, everybody, what do you guys think about this? Okay, let's settle for a slowdown. Earlier, I got a little ahead of myself, and my teeth and stuff are not working properly, so it's having a hard time getting it out here today. I'm just not feeling the best. So, sorry so very much for all the hiccups. But that video, mainstream media, talking about these critters here, these guys from, I guess let's just say, ancient antiquity. And when you think about these most reported alien beings, you got the mantis people, you've got the grays, like we've talked about many times here on the channel. We've talked about it to a point to, exhaustion, pretty much exhaustion. But let's talk about this guy on the left here, these mantis-like beings. Their height, 6 to 7 feet, species class insectoid, large compound eyes, highly agile, excellent eyesight, telepathic abilities. And let's just talk about these mantis beings real quick. They're often considered some of the most exotic and high-ranking entities with the abduction heresy. Those insectoid beings are frequently reported as overseers to the Greys. Their physical appearance, extremely tall, often range from 7 to 9 feet. They possess an exoskeleton and overall anatomy that closely mirrors a terrestrial praying mantis walking upright on 2 elongated legs. They have large triangle heads with massive dark wrapped round compound eyes. The bodies are incredibly thin and segmented, with long arms that naturally fold against their chest in the distinct praying posture. Their coloration ranges from dark green and brown to a rare stark white. The reported behavior abductees routinely describe mantis as highly intelligent, ancient, and authoritative. They are rarely seen during manual work. Instead, they appear to direct to supervise the Greys during the complex procedures. Despite their terrifying appearance, witnesses often report the mantis project a calm, strict, yet profoundly wise demeanor, functioning almost like cosmic doctors or scientists. So, what do you guys think? Y'all got any mantises running around your backyard? Hey, they're good for gardening. Just letting you know, they're good if you got them in your garden. I'm just giving y'all some, it's food for thought for agriculture stance. But these mantis-like beings are helping these guys right here, supposedly. And let's talk about these Greys. We talked about these many times here on the channel, talking about the Manic Wabu commentary from the Brazilian tribal leaders down there in Brazil, all that good stuff. But these guys from the Zeta Reticuli, they are the most iconic, universally recognized figures in modern UFO culture, heavily tied to the 1947 Roswell incident with Barney and Betty Hill abduction case of 1961. And their appearance is generally falling between 2 categories: small Greys, roughly 3 to 4 feet, and tall Greys, 6 feet to taller, who reportedly act as leaders or handlers. They possess oversized, hairless, pear-shaped heads, supported by thin, fragile necks. Key features or most defining features are massive, completely black, almond-shaped eyes, the lack of pupils. They have pale gray to chalky skin, sit like a mouse, no external ears, no longer than their elongated fingers. And then the reported behavior on this is counts are consistently described as high clinical, detached, and operational communications and almost exclusively telepathic. And then they have this emotional response, that they have a unsettling sense of mental paralysis or a total lack of individual emotion from the entities. So it's interesting when you're looking at the people that are abductees, the witnesses on that. It's very profound indeed. And this reptilian-like guy here on this screenshot of everybody articulating it on the Internet of Things, it almost looks like the individual from Star Wars, but we're looking at reptilians here. And the species class is a Saurian entity class of species, and the height is 6 to 8 feet. And this one's the one that is really going on in a very, let's just say, trending topic in the so-called pastors' meeting and other things that are being commented on here on the internet and this side of the world. So they have reptilian features, highly intelligent, strong in resistance, advanced technology. Well, they all have advanced technology, don't they, folks? They all have advanced technologies. And these guys are massive, imposing figures standing anywhere from 6 to 9 feet tall, possessing heavy, muscular, bipedal builds, and mirror a lizard or dinosaur, more like a dragon. And they have brownish green to gray and black scales. They have pronounced elongated jaws. I need an elongated jaw the way my mouth are feeling. Filled with a sharp teeth, glowing yellow or red eyes with vertical slit pupils and muscular hands ending in sharp claws. Some accounts slip into the distinctive casts, noting that the higher ranking individuals are allegedly possessed tails or webbed wing-like appendages. And this lore between these individuals, these reptilian-like entities, possessing highly authoritative, aggressive, and manipulative. We talked about this recently on one of our live streams. They are often associated with subterranean bases, ancient global manipulation, or operating behind the scenes military governance structures projecting a heavy, intimidating psychic energy. Well, then lo and behold, you have the last one here with our, we have some folks that are the higher powers talking about these Nordics, striking humanoid, typically standing at 6 to 7 feet tall. They are categorized as flawless. Yep. Athletic physiques, exceptionally pale or radiant skin, and long defined hair looking like Thor. And then the key features, their eyes are often described as larger than human eyes, intensely blue, green, or colorless, and occasionally reported to emanate a faint, soft glow or possess a vertical pupil configuration under the observation. And then these are, unlike the clinical grays or Nordics, are usually described as benevolent, deeply spiritual, and concerned about human spiritual evolution and ecological survival. Contactees often describe these communications as warm, telepathic, and focus on the warnings about nuclear situations and environmental decay. So, what do you guys think? Are we looking at something here that's so jaw-dropping, and it's just a little underwhelming for me? It really is. And yeah, so good shout out. I want to give a shout out to Larry Davis. I seen you in there, my friend. Thank you so very much for being here, and it's good seeing you. I am fighting this anatomy. I'm fighting it visually, and I'm fighting it physically, and I'm fighting it with my teeth, one tooth at a time. Wouldn't that be something? Teeth start falling out, and you'd be visually disturbed on the program. Wouldn't that be kind of comical? It probably wouldn't be comical for me, but wouldn't that might make the viewership go up a little higher? but anyways, that's where I'm at, folks. So what do you guys think about these most reported alien beings? Here we go. We got this Nephilim type of concept. We could look at the taller the stature, 8 foot, 7 foot. We've looked back into ancient documents looking at some things when it comes to giants. Not only was they 15 foot, 30 foot, or even titans of old from the 450 foot range of the titan exterior of anatomy, but now you have this these things in the past where there's, in Wisconsin, if my memory serves me correct, where there's a cave system where there's 15 footers with the male and the female of the parents, but there was children that was either around 10 to 12 years old that was only like 7 to 8 foot tall. So you gain 10 to 12 foot children around here, or 10-year-olds that are 10 to 12 foot, I don't think we have that in our reality, or even 8 to 10. So it's kind of strange how this is all, let's just say, covered up through our ancient time or our realm of existence. So let's get into this next thing. So speaking of faith and speaking of aliens and UFOs and anything goes, I want to throw something out here. I've got a few little clips of individuals out here. We got Louis Elizondo. I'm going to talk about him here in a few seconds. He was on the Jillian Michaels broadcast just recently. Let's just go ahead and share that. He speaks about hybridization programs, and we're going to talk about that and really see where we're at with this. So, one moment.
Where do we start? Should we start with an alien hybrid breeding program where they're capturing caravans of immigrants and forcing them into this? Or should we start with the fact that a congressman who is well respected thinks that if this is fully disclosed, it's going to set the country on fire? I'm going to hand this one over to you here. I'm speechless.
Sure. Well, first of all, I've had the privilege of speaking to Representative Tim Burchett and his colleagues, and what he's saying regarding access to very sensitive information, he's absolutely correct. Some of the people that briefed those individuals, I personally know. They were colleagues of mine back in the day. He's absolutely correct that some of the population, I think, would probably be potentially concerned about how much we know about this topic, and for several reasons. We can go into that. Now, as far as this notion of alien crossbreeding and hybridization, let me just preface this. When I was in the Pentagon at ATIP, I was a nuts and bolts kind of guy, so really airframe integrity, the material science and propulsion behind the vehicles themselves, not so much the occupants. But what Gates is referring to is something called, in the vernacular, it's known throughout kind of the UFO community as MILABs. And what it suggests is that there's been a long-standing agreement or understanding between us and our friends from out of town that have allowed us to work with whatever these are, in a cooperative agreement, and in exchange for that, supposedly they would have access to certain human specimens biologically in order to test. I have to say, first and foremost, I heard about that while I was at the Pentagon. I was not privy to the specifics of that. From my understanding, that relationship began, if it is true, began sometime in the 1950s. And has continued. I have met several individuals, former intelligence officers for the Air Force and other services, who swear by it, who actually say they've had encounters with UAP and have seen military personnel in and around the vehicles, and as if, very nonchalant, as if it was supposed to be. I have to be careful with going into any type of speculation about hybridization or any type of scientific study or research, because, again, that was not my forte. But what I will say is I've had plenty of individuals tell me verbatim that the military is far more, the military-industrial complex is far more involved in this topic than anyone really knows. There are cases which seem rather interesting, where you have, in some cases, UAP potentially being escorted by American fighter jets and allied fighter jets. So that would give you some sense of cooperation, maybe between us and whatever they are. I can't tell you for certain, because simply I wasn't privy to that, if that indeed existed. But I will also say it's really not that far of a stretch if we were to come into contact with, let's say, just another nation, right? So let's look at it this way from a real perspective. There are tribes right now that are isolated in the Amazon and also in the South Pacific, and we have these no-go zones. Basically, we're not going to interfere with these indigenous people and their development, because they've never had outside exposure. They haven't been exposed to recent diseases and things like that, and it could cause a significant problem for them. But once one culture decides to engage another culture here on Earth, right? Forget about out there, just right here. You have an exchange of ideas. You have agreements between the different peoples. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You can go back and look at the conquistadors during their La Reconquista, or the reconquering, where their interaction with indigenous people didn't go so well, right? Same here in the United States, where we maybe did some things that we probably shouldn't have towards indigenous people. In other cases, it was a little bit more symbiotic. So let's get back to the question you're having, specifically about hybrids and alien hybrids. I don't know. I do know that there are people out there that swear by it.
So let me get this straight. When I'm listening to him talk, and him talking about the Amazon, we talked about that one time, I think, on an older broadcast. The understanding of that, and I've always thought, I mean, that came up in the news a couple years ago, actually. They was talking about it specifically because they was worried about their safety. It's always about peace and safety, right? They're always worried about people's safety. And I remember there was some footage going around online with the Amazons. They was throwing their hands up in the air, and I think even in one case they was throwing projectiles, javelins or arrows or whatever they made at helicopter pilots. So you have to ask yourself a question. Is this scenario going on a reality where they're monitoring strategic locations, even on continent levels or island levels of humans? You have to ask yourself that question. You know, they're talking about Gates, Mr. Matt, that spoke specifically about the hybridization program. Well, immigrants wore something to that level of somebody being gathered up, and let's just say things are being transferred and transported to get technological advancements. I've spoke about it for 1,000 times here on the channel. Just like the days of old, women and children, the men are like really freaked out when the sons of God come down. They start taking their daughters, start taking their children, but they give them a little bit of technological advancement. It's kind of strange. So isn't it still going on then? Is that what Mr. Lizondo here was saying? Was Lou saying that in this segment of this video here? I don't know. Makes you wonder about the Amazon jungle and what's really going on there. I've heard a lot more. I've heard, you know, you got the face peelers in Peru. You've got, I think it's in Peru. And I'm a little rusty today, folks. If you haven't noticed, hit that like button and share, because Visual Disturbance is almost out of here. I'm on one leg and cranking up the alternators, barely hanging on, Captain. But Amazon jungle, the people that are there that have no inkling of outside life, what is really going on? What is really going on? That's the question. Well, there's been other video footage here that has really got my discernment meter going off into other dimensional stance. And let's just go and look at this one podcast. It was Joey Clark live, speaking of Lou Elizondo, excuse me, I butchered his name. Let me pull it up here. This gentleman started talking about something about the phenomenon with the dimensional stance. And it's interesting that they're pushing, you know, the religious stance, talking about that. You got the folks that are in the know with the secret so-called meetings that they're all underground, whatever, off a disclosed location with pastors, etc., etc. Well, it's interesting with the raptor reptilian name keeps popping up into our society. And let's just talk about what they're talking about here on this interview with Lou and see what they're specifying here about the UFO phenomenon and the dimensional rift of spiritual warfare.
This topic doesn't challenge the notion of God whatsoever. And in fact,
there was a time where the church would have considered blasphemous if we put limitations on God's providence, meaning we put limitations on what God can and cannot create. So I understand superficially that there may be a rub of this conversation of the topic of UAP as it relates to religion, but a lot of, and most, in fact, religious individuals who I've spoken to include religious leaders and philosophers and persons, clergy and persons of the cloth, they don't see an issue with this. They look at this and say, yep, God's pretty much entitled to do whatever God wants to do. And if this is part of his plan, then it's part of his plan, and we're just going to have to accept it. Let's take, for example, human vision. Human vision on the electromagnetic spectrum represents about 0.0035% of the entire electromagnetic spectrum, meaning 99.99% of the universe around us we cannot perceive. It is beyond human vision. So where I live here in Wyoming, if you were to look at a beautiful unoccluded night sky, you say, wow, look at this. I can see the Milky Way galaxy and I see some stars. And maybe even Andromeda, the galaxy Andromeda. Now look at that same portion of this night sky with a radio telescope. Even just one, look at it in the infrared spectrum, and you'll see an entirely different reality around you. You will see nebula and clouds and large Magellanic Clouds that remain invisible to us. But yet that is where most of the universe lies. Look at things like dark matter and dark energy, right? This 99% of the universe is completely invisible to us, and yet that is the reality around us. Yeah, let me give you my word of advice, Lou's advice on how we should deal with this topic. I think we should love our families. I think we need to spend more time with our children. You sit down with your buddy at work and they can tell you who the favorite quarterback is of their team and what their record is, and yet they can't tell you who little Johnny or Jane sits next to in second period math class, right? Or lunch. Love one another. This is going to happen whether we like it or not, and I believe that things happen to the benefit of mankind for the most part. I believe that God has a direct hand in us, and so maybe if we want to understand what's out there a little more, first we need to understand what's in our own hearts a little more. Maybe we need to focus on each other and try to be more kind to one another, try to be more patient, try to give grace to individuals who have harmed us. Take time to tell your children you love them. Take time to tell your spouse you respect them and you love them. That's my word of advice. I know it's probably to a lot of people out there saying, well, one doesn't have to do with the other. Yes, it does. Absolutely, it does. It starts in here. Before you can ever start finding out the answers out there, you need to stop and look in the mirror, and you first need to ask the same questions about yourself.
You know, folks, this reminds me of nothing against Lou or anybody. It just reminds me of Stargate, sci-fi films, peace and love type of thing, and they just keep on pushing certain things. Nothing against Lou and them. I'm talking about as a whole collective. It's almost like the watchers themselves have either put a hit on individuals. We can talk about the human stance, just the human mortal concept of reality, just the humans in general. We can separate the whole thing about religion and all that and just look at it as a collective. It's easy to be manipulative. Manipulation is on the highest order. I've never in my life have seen so much when you just go outside or you just turn your TV on, your phone, whatever the scenario is. People are falling to deception. And then you have these other categories of folks that are never even woke up to any kind of realization that there's anything going on. And to me, that's crucial in this time to be awake to understanding there's manipulation. We have this angelic, we have demons, we have extraterrestrials. I think there's I honestly think there's so much to it that we can't our peripheral, our vision, just like Lou said. And speaking of one here that's on the screen here that you're watching, visually disturbed, in all seriousness, having visual disturbances is not a fun thing. So even if on a lower scale and people can't see this light perspective, light perception, there's something that's been done. There's something that has changed our world. And I don't know what it is, but at the end of the day, whoever they are controlling the strings. But the thing that they want, and I'm just going to say this, and Lou was talking about be a good human, love your family, love your kids, what have you. Reach out to folks, love your friends, love thy neighbor with all their heart, that kind of thing when it comes to the biblical narrative. But you have to think, when you really focus on that, the soul is what the prize is. That's where I'm at. That's exactly where I'm at. I think the soul is what they want. All the things I've read, all the ancient documents, there's something about the specialness of the soul. Yeah, and I digress. Let's just keep moving. But what's your take on that? Sorry, I'm not as high octane, visually disturbing hillbilly Kentucky talk, but I'm telling you, folks, I am having a slow day, slow go. Thanks for the shout out too, and then I seen somebody in the chat too. Also, bless you for the super chats and all that good stuff. We're going to continue this on, and I'm going to endure. Once I hit the link and hit the URL up and tell you guys I'm going live unless, if I'm crawling to the mic, because I feel like it's important to still hold to what you believe and actually have good morals in this world and actually respect folks, and your time is valuable to me. So if I didn't show up, it would be a letdown for you guys, and I just cannot do that, even though I'm about 35% right now. But that's okay. That's okay.
So,
that's okay.
Where do we start? Should we start?
Trying to get the other video to pop up. Forgive me for that. Yeah, so I'm on my last leg. I hope you caught that last little bit of part there. So, speaking of faith, speaking of humility, humane stance, this is interesting to me. Congressman Eric Burleson is talking just recently, about a week ago. He said he's seen some things that would make him question his faith. Check this video out and let me know what your all's take is on it.
I'm a Christian.
Here we go.
I'm a Christian. I am absolutely a born-again believer. I believe that the only way to salvation is through Jesus Christ.
Good for you. Me too.
So
God bless
let
you.
me kind of walk you through my personal journey on this.
Okay.
I'm a skeptic. I believe that I'm from the Show Me State. You're going to have to prove to me what these are. I'm going to have to see them for myself in person before I believe anything. That being said, I've often wondered how does this fit with my biblical worldview? Does this really challenge my faith?
Right.
And what I've come to the conclusion is that if you pay attention to what the Bible actually says, not what you think it says, this does not conflict with anything that we believe as Christians. The Bible is very clear. We're not the first creation, that there were entities, part of the heavenly kingdom, the kingdom of God, that were created before mankind entered this universe.
Gotcha.
And the question is, what are those things? I mean, the Bible describes them broadly as angels. It describes some of them as seraphim, some as cherubim. I don't know what those things are.
Right.
And,
Me neither.
and most people, but at the end of the day, I don't want to pigeonhole myself as a believer into saying, an alien comes from an extraterrestrial being comes down, and that doesn't fit the Bible. Well, maybe it does. Maybe that's what the Bible was pointing towards all along. I'm not a theologian, but I'm just trying to say, the more that we as Christians just stick to what the Bible actually says, as opposed to what we believe it says, I think we'll be better off. The Bible doesn't say, for example, the devil, there's nowhere in the Bible where it says the devil has a tail and a pitchfork.
Right.
It doesn't, it's not there. And so start shaking away any kind of medieval version of your interpretation of the Bible, and I think you'll be better.
It's interesting that he talks about the tail and the pitchfork of the Hollywood narrative. Folks, we've talked about this a little bit in the past, and When I think about this character, this depiction, this Hellboy type of concept of, let's just say illustrations of comic book characters, etc., I don't know where that comes from. You know, there's been some speculation where it comes from, where the origins are. Is it just all made up? Did one of these individuals, these entities that they're alluding to here, that they're talking about, these angels, demons, lizard-like people, did they put that information in people's mind to give them the ability to articulate something on a comic book level or some type of cartoon to make that be subliminally messaging in your mind 24/7, a red, black horn type of character? I don't know, folks. Just like these individuals know. These people, this is on a news anchor network here and Real America, and you heard the host there. He's even claiming, I don't know him either. And even Eric Burleson is saying the Seraphim, the Cherubim. We've talked about this many times. We have the archons, we have the different categories of angels, different categories of giants. I mean, that's just coming from the biblical stance. So you have to look at that, and that's on the flesh. If you think about the giant stance, that's fleshly than more, spiritually in a sense. But after the flood of Noah, they become embodied spirits. So you have to ask yourself, what are they going to do with this lizard, these other characters that are going to show up in these Vimanas, the Ophanums? What's going to show up? What's going to happen? What's going to be so drastically changing the perspective, the minds of the folks? And why is it all so, pushy for Americans to get ahead of this? Well, I think that we are the ancient world that had ancient antediluvian knowledge that ties back to Atlantean and even other civilizations that's came and gone. That's why we're more privy to this knowledge. That's why they're pushing for disclosure here in this America. And I just seen this recently. Just like yesterday, I think. Now everybody else is getting on the bandwagon. You even have Japan. You have other. They're giving up documentation. It's like a slow drip, but I think America is going to be at the top of it, and they're trying to all have a race to this so-called. I think it's a cover-up for 0 point energy. There's something hidden, something forgotten, something of ancient times is going to be. Coming to our existence in our society in this day and age, and people are not really getting it. We're still stuck on human constructs. We're stuck on fish fries at the local gathering at the church. I'm sorry I said that, but I'm just saying we have lost our understanding. We've become consumers. We forgot how to understand, and all this vanity and things have really disrupted our, let's just say, perception. And when these things come up on the earth, they're going to have supernatural abilities compared to what we got. But I've said it many times. When you look at the biblical understanding, a lot of people get all upset when I speak about this. We're just a little lower than the angels. We're not supposed to be bound to angels. It's kind of interesting where that all plays in the game. Angels got just a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more supernatural ability, mystique, just like the Nordics have supernatural abilities, but we are on the same playing ground when it comes to who created us. It's kind of strange, just throwing that out there. So, we got that in the mix. We've got forgive me, folks. I'm not blacking out yet, but I'm close. So, subscribe if you haven't, and I've got a few more things here to show you guys. A few more things. So, I'm not going to show that clip because that's too controversial, and they probably won't let me get by with that. I want to show you something, folks, if I can pull it up. There's a movie that came out not too long ago. Well, it was about 12 years ago, believe it or not. No, it's 10 years ago. And it's this one right here. Jupiter Ascending. Okay. Well, Jupiter Ascending, a lot of folks online, a lot of conspiracy theorists, and a lot of individuals out there are claiming this is the best thing since sliced bread when it comes to the UFO phenomenon. And I have to agree that there's some situations in here that are really mirroring what's going on right now in our society. So, I want to show you something about the plot of this Jupiter Ascending, if I can. So, no joke, Jupiter Ascending 2015. This is some type of space opera that blends fairy tale into massive high concept of sci-fi. But is it? Is it sci-fi? And it's kind of interesting that this is how the plot unfolds of this. This individual goes from cleaning toilets in Chicago to ruling an interstellar empire. So let's just see here what we have eerily when we think about the Jillian podcast earlier with Lou. Let's just read this. The Secret of the Universe. The movie opens up revealing the Earth and countless other planets were seeded millennia ago by transhuman alien royalty. Transhuman alien royalty. That's interesting. I keep hearing 2030 is going to be transhumanism. Think about what I'm saying. The most powerful of these dynasties is the House of Abarax. When the matriarch dies, her three ruthless children, Baal, Kaluk, and Titus, colleague and Titus, inherit her vast corporate planetary empire. And then here's where it gets interesting. The family business. They harvest, populate planets, manufacture Regen X, and a tire serum that grants physical immortality by processing the life force of millions of human beings. Doesn't that sound familiar? Anybody? Doesn't that sound so familiar when it comes to the E-Files and the powers that be? There's a certain term that starts with an A, and harnessing the life force of individuals. Isn't this kind of strange that this movie mirrors what our society is today? Kind of weird when it comes to the UFO phenomenon. It's almost like they was plugging in some subliminal messaging to get us ready for nonsense. And I will say this, if you can barely see it there, that's not my X page. It says Life of Brian, but that's somebody else out there on the X side of things. I'm on Visual Disturbance side, but Jupiter Ascending, if you look at the cover there, you can barely see it. There's the matriarch, the lady on the left, and then you have the male on the right. Well, folks, I'm just going to say it. He's actually a dogman. Looks like a werewolf type of individual, and he falls in love with her. He's like the protector, trying to fight for humanity toward the end, but at the beginning, I think he fights for the entities that are sucking the life force out of millions of human beings. So, what's your all's take on that? What's your all's thoughts? I'm sitting here thinking, even though I've been super rough on this broadcast, and I hope y'all give me grace in the comments after this. I really do hope y'all give me some grace. I am fighting my jaw and my teeth. It is all locking up. My visual stance is always bad, but my God, this teeth thing has added more of a component to drive me insane. Sorry I keep complaining, but I have really pushed myself to get this out here today. So I hope y'all see my effort. I really want to try my best to make this make sense. So, Jupiter Ascending, werewolves, human, this matriarch, Balaam, Kalik, Titus, this vast planetary empire, this family business, given the reins. Of course, it's a female, right? I mean, here we go. We got the Genesis 6 narrative one more time when it comes to that. It's just so interesting that this movie is mirroring the understanding of the days of old, and then they're coming back again, and we have this understanding of humans being harnessed as used as cattle. And you hear that term all the time in the "we are the owners of all life," that individuals out there talking all that nonsensical ideology. And then you see fear-mongering on the highest order, which I can't even process in my brainwave, okay? So it's almost like fear-based mind control. That's what we're looking at here, and I've said it again, I'll say it one more time. When you keep doing that, and the psychic abilities happen, you can go look this up. once you torture somebody and all this all horrifying things that they've done tests on humans, they start demonstrating psychic abilities, okay? Like some type of telekinesis. And I've even heard that this ties back to try to listen or hear or be telepathically connected to the Galactic Federation. Okay, folks, this is where we're at. So basically, fallen angel technology, lizard-like beings, the reptilians that go back to we mentioned it the last video or so about the visions of Amram and the Dead Sea Scrolls, talking about Moses' body, or Moses' daddy's body, Amram, getting debated over two lizard-like men. I mean, we're looking at the same darn thing. There's nothing new under the sun, and we're sitting here playing catch-up, and everybody's singing a little jingling, and everybody doesn't know what's going on. This is news is not for everybody. We are not alone, indeed. So one more other thing real quick before we conclude the broadcast. I've got one more thing in the tank. You're going to like this. Just before I started, right before I placed the link in the chat, this video showed up. This individual has been seen 10 million times now because guess who posted it? He posted a 5 million, I can't even talk, folks. 5-minute video of this woman talking, and guess who it is? It's Elon Musk. I'm not kidding you. It's Elon Musk posted this just 2 hours ago. He said, "Where are the aliens? This is one of the most fundamental questions." And you know, he never talks about this on his X page much. So we're going to play this and see what you think about it, because it's very interesting that he had to post this today. Very interesting.
The Fermi paradox is a question of why we haven't heard from any extraterrestrial species. The Milky Way has had billions of years to produce civilizations, so where is everybody? You can turn this question around and ask, given that we have not heard from any other species, what does this silence tell us? Well, the authors of a new paper just crunched the numbers and arrived at a slightly horrifying conclusion. The starting point in all discussions about the Fermi paradox is the Drake equation. That's an estimate for the number of actively communicating technological civilizations in our galaxy. The estimate comes from multiplying a bunch of factors, like how many suitable planets exist, how often life begins, how often intelligence evolves, how often it becomes technological, and then you multiply by how long such a civilization lasts. The authors of the new paper now instead ask, given that we have not yet detected any signals from other civilizations, how long does a civilization last on the average? They plug in the best current numbers we have for the number of planets in habitable zones and so on. Then they calculate how long civilizations persist, and the result is about 5,000 years. Yes, that's right. They say put in our estimates for the other numbers and you have to conclude that civilizations only keep up their space signaling activity for a few thousand years. If they're right, we may currently be in what historians will later call the final season. They also give a second, more observationally flavored argument. Electromagnetic signals cross the galaxy in about 100,000 years, so if civilizations last longer than this and broadcast detectably for a meaningful fraction of that time, we should have seen something by now. So this estimate is slightly more optimistic, but still it's rather depressing. Why might this be the case? What could be the reason why technological civilizations go dark so quickly? Scientists have proposed basically 3 different reasons. The first is self-inflicted extinction or near extinction. That might be war, accidentally released pandemics, or environmental destruction that eventually erodes the capability of the species to survive at high technological standard. I think that this problem almost certainly befalls a lot of civilizations. They just fail to grow beyond a certain level of complexity. The second possibility is that there is some sort of external risk factor that we don't know of. Maybe supernovae explosions are much more frequent and more fatal than we thought. Maybe tiny black holes exist after all and eat up more stars than we thought, though I think this is unlikely. The third possible explanation is that civilizations survive, but they lose interest in space exploration. They spend all their time in virtual reality, or they have crossed over to a post-scarcity economy and can't be bothered lifting a finger if they have fingers. Of course, the problem might actually appear earlier. It seems that somewhere between having a habitable planet and having a truly interstellar civilization, there's a step that's so hard that almost no species completes it. This has been dubbed the Great Filter by Robin Hanson. The Great Filter might be because the origin of life is so unlikely. Personally, I think that's not the case. Indeed, in the past years, we've seen that complex chemical cycles that lead to reproduction seem to actually be quite common. However, the Great Filter might come at a later stage. The issue might be that for a species to reach a high level of technological sophistication, its members must be intelligent enough to coordinate their actions. As I said in a recent video, I doubt that humans are intelligent enough to jump that bar unless possibly we manage to use artificially intelligent systems to our advantage. In any case, what are we to make of this somewhat depressing paper? First of all, it must be said that the authors use optimistic values for the other parameters in the Drake equation. They take, for example, a large number of Earth-like habitable planets in the Milky Way, around 1 million, and they take the probability that such a planet produces a technological civilization to be close to 1. It's only then that you get the pessimistic constraints on the survival of a technological civilization. Personally, I think that these values are close to the correct ones. The point where I disagree with the authors is simply the question of what such a technological civilization would be communicating with. The authors, as pretty much everyone else, assume that technological civilizations would, of course, communicate with electromagnetic signals that we can measure. But I strongly doubt that we have yet developed the technology that an advanced species would be using. I think it's possible to communicate faster than the speed of light. And of course, if that's possible, that's what the aliens use to signal. We could be sitting right in the middle of a cosmic broadband stream and wouldn't know, because no one on this planet believes faster than light signaling is even possible. I give this paper a 5 out of 10 rating on the bullshit meter. It's not wrong, but the authors do once again miss the obvious explanation for the silence, which is that we have not yet developed the right technology to receive the signals. And somewhere out there, an alien scientist is currently giving a lecture titled The Earth Paradox. Why haven't they answered?
Well, this video, I think it's interesting that Elon posted this today. It's kind of conflicting, but then I agree with a little bit what she says, but not much. But you can disagree with folks. You have a right for that. But I'm confused. And I'm sorry about the information or the bad language there toward the end of that video. But when I'm processing all this and looking at, you hear the terms, I think David Icke has mentioned this many times, talking about prison planet, talking about different things. Let me fix that for y'all real quick. Yeah, there you go. Prison planet and things that just doesn't make any sense when it comes to our society, our reality. So I have to ask this because there's too much information that I've shared on this channel. There's too many 3-letter agencies that I've shared on this channel with documentation talking about creatures, etc., coming from crafts, etc., way before they even mentioned the UFO files that just dropped at the Department of War. So what is really going on? Why is there mixed? It's like everybody's on a different wavelength. There's categories of these folks on wavelengths of this, and then you hear the term time shifts and timelines and all kinds of stuff. You can walk along somebody that's an NPC. I've heard all kinds of rhetoric, but nobody ever gives me any clear information or clear-cut understanding. And I'd have to be dismissed to believe that there's not at least puzzle pieces that we've collaborated together here on the channel, that these things do exist to a certain degree, interdimensionally, physically, Nephilim concept of hybrid creatures, the Book of Enoch screaming off the page, the biblical narrative screaming off the page, the cuneiform tablets from the Anunnaki stance. I mean, we can go back to ancient Egypt, talking about entities that are coming from the sky, coming from the ground. It's strange to me. It really is. It's strange and very highly compelling. I seen somebody in the chat ask me, what do I think about the missing scientist? Well, once again, I think it's strange that all this is happening at the exact same time frame of the cards are falling down, the dominoes are starting to collect and start to stack, and they're going to be this huge, elaborate complexity of dominoes have been built up, but now you're going to be, from an aerial view, get to see the actual imagery of what it's trying to illustrate. I really do see that coming into our reality and our peripheral, like what we're going to be seeing. So the missing scientist, they're all tied to exotic propulsion. It's just fact. Let's just go ahead and simplify it. Propulsion systems. There's the insert of 0-point energy, something to that level. Missing or passed away, either way you look at it, they had connections to exotic tech. So it's either we have entities. I heard somebody on X, somebody of a higher stature, talking about that they think it's not human interaction. It might be alien taking these people. Is it the praying mantis here? Is it the Greys? Is it the reptilians, the Nordics? Who the heck is it? You know, it's kind of scary. Stephen Greer was talking about, I think in a seminar, something he did, some kind of, I said seminar, but anyway, some kind of convention that he was at. And I think he spoke just for a little bit in that one. And he's like, you know, it would be very scary if the people of Earth knew that they had the technology to remove you without even being aware of it. That's what he made some type of, I'm paraphrasing, but that's the comments. So it's kind of interesting that all this individuals that's gone missing, this has all been kind of going back in the early 2000s with that Amy Eckridge, and you have that Garland individual, that Navy, I think there's some Navy guys, there's all kinds of different generals, et cetera, involved. But then you go to China, and they're doing the same thing. It's like a mirroring of what we got going on. So, when I watched enough sci-fi, some type of gurgitation of total annihilation in my brain, cerebral cortex, what's left of it, and I think about, it's like a movie plot. People go missing, planes go missing, people with high stature clearance UFO knowledge go missing. I want to throw out another one for you here. There was a submarine, let's just say privately owned flotation device that went under the water. We talked about this several years ago. And some of the folks who were on there was billionaires, which had some UFO clearance to some degree, and they imploded. Just saying. Something happened with the pressure, blew up the vessel, and then total annihilation. And then somebody says, don't let E.T. steal your Reese's Pieces. It's not the E.T.s that's stealing my Reese's Pieces. It's my vision and my teeth, and I won't even be able to eat any chocolate candy. So, and I haven't had coffee for over 2 weeks. I'm on a fast. So, a little hard on the good old Kentucky hillbilly, but clones, etc. I've seen somebody's comments. I would just say this to answer your question. I think some of these people must have passed away. That's what was claimed. And some were taken to somewhere. And I think it's either, let's just say, an operation off-grid, somewhere far beyond the blue, and somewhere strategically probably underwater. I'll say that. I say it's underwater facilities, and it's not on the ground. It's not even underground. We're talking about under the water. That's where I'm at. They keep talking about the 6 to 12 water bases. They talk about the hybridization programs being involved with those. They talked about 5 or 6 that they knew that was highly active, that was going, and the craft was coming out of the water in the oceans. That's where I think that they would probably end up taking these individuals. Or somebody in the chat, there could be something to do with time. And I hate to go there, but I've looked at too much with the Malaysia 370. There could be technology to change something to a level black holes, what have you. And I think that there's something there on a smaller level instead of a larger level, and it involves dark lightning. Dark lightning. So go look that up at your convenience. And yeah, so I think it's scriptures across the world. Keep up the good work, Brian. I am trying to endure, and thank you all for the donations and the many blessings. And like I said at the beginning, I was a little rough start because I had some tech issues and my jaw was kind of locking up. I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart because I hated to reach out to you guys and ask for donations. I just hated to do it. But this is a need about this whole teeth process that's going through. I knew years ago this was happening. 3 years ago, I knew it was starting to deplete. And I've been riding, let's just say, driving the axle and the shocks in that sense, that scenario, in the teeth and the absorb, everything's falling out. And I've got infection. And I'm waiting I can't really do anything right now. I'm kind of waiting because I can't get any kind of extractions or anything done because I need the teeth to be able to chew and eat off of. So there you go. And then there's going to be some other complex situations going on with mouth guard and what have you. And I kid you not, dental care, any kind of care that you need to get nowadays, it's like astronomically expensive. I could not believe it. But I see where they come to the conclusion of how much it is. But my God, I mean, how does people survive? And I hate to take advantage of anybody. I'm not that type of person to be a beggar or some individual just to be like, I just don't want to bring shame to myself. I've never been a person to just ask straight up for money. I can't stand it. I've always been a person with integrity, and I always want to try to pay people back. So I pray that I paid you all back with what I present here and what I keep grinding and keep giving all I got. And I pray that y'all see the effort that I'm trying my best with all I got going on, and try to stay strong-willed and stay the course, and not give in to everything that's going on with me. So I really do appreciate you all, and thank you for the blessings and everything that y'all have done and contributed to me. So I hope I can return that in some shape or form, what y'all have done for me. Some of the folks that donated just the other day, God bless you guys abundantly. And I humbly mean that. I'm just kind of a very simple individual. And I was always raised not to ask for money. I always, work, sweat the brow, and tear your body apart just to get a little bit of dollars on the hour. I kid you not. I was an individual. I've talked about this many times. I don't want to ramble on. I was just raised to, if you want to work and you want to make money, you got to work 80 hours. And it's going to be a hard, very physical type of mentality, and you're going to sweat until you about pass out. 100-degree temperatures, and I've got that T-shirt. So look out, aliens. Look out, aliens, if I ever wake up and my body wakes back up to the milkman type of body that I used to have, and my visual cortex kicks back into play, and I don't turn into a bat. But it might help in these days and times. Maybe I'll follow visual disturbance into the caves, and he's got eyesight like a bat, and he's looking like sonar. Look out, creatures from above, because we got the Kentucky bluegrass boy. He's starting to make it happen with his infirmities. Insert sarcasm and entertainment purposes only, but that would be kind of funny. Look out, aliens and demons and extraterrestrials and UFOs and anything goes. But that's enough for me rambling on here today. I want to thank you guys so very much. And somebody said it's a time travel from 1975. Yes, that is a lot of terminology talked about with that. And I hope you guys are super blessed abundantly. And I can't thank you all enough for subscribing and being here, and always being here from the very beginning of this platform and everything I try my best to do to shine light in this crazy, bizarro, conspiracy, tinfoil hat loving individuals with aliens amongst us, Nephilim amongst us, angels and demons and everything under the sun. I'm just trying to be human with a soul in his body that's cranking out some just awesome stuff along the way and shouting to the rooftops, the one that created me. So that's what it's all about. So thank you all so very much, and I appreciate you guys abundantly. So with that being said, news is not for everybody. I got to get off here because my jaw, and I'm just not feeling it. Just not feeling it. I don't want to ramble on here, but it's been a pleasure and a blessing to always see you guys. News is not for everybody. We are not alone. Apparently, according to the accounts of all the people that's in the know, and I can take you back to some places here in Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. Maybe we'll have to do a meetup one day, and we can do something super cool with a big, awesome meetup. And oh my goodness, CS Webb. God bless you. So God bless you. Thank you for that. And what an honor and a privilege it is to be able to do this. And Visual Disturbance, I'm going to get out of here before I start tearing up. But other than that, I'm going to salute you guys. If I don't never see you again, good afternoon, good evening, good night, like I always say. But until next time, until we do our next broadcast, I hope you all have a blessed and wonderful day. And be of good cheer, because the aliens are here. That's according to the account, but they've always been, according to this psychological warfare that we're living in. So until next time, Visual Disturbance, I'm out here, Brian Reese, but thank you all once again for all that you do for me. And I'm going to keep grinding and keep taking it to the level, and hopefully I can keep on keeping on in this crazy society. So until next time, Visual Disturbance, I'm out of here. Love you guys. See you on the next one.
Got one that can see.